Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'll be making an argument for Salafiyyah being misguided, namely that Istigatha is not shirk. So here's the basic logic of the argument. One of the main claims Salafiyyah make to being correct is that their understanding of Tawheed and Shirk is correct and that rest of the Ummah is misguided. The Salafis claim that Istigatha is shirk. It can be easily proven that Istigatha is not shirk. Hence, Salafi understanding of Tawheed and Shirk is not correct. If that isn't correct, then their sect cannot be the safe sect. Right? Now, the logic of this argument follows. I don't think anyone will try to challenge that. What people will try to challenge is that whether Istighasa is Shirk or not, right? So I'll make a very my argument depends on Istighasa not being Shirk. I'll give a very simple proof for it. I'll give it from this hadith. This is Sahih Bukhari 1344. It's basically Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this after basically praying the funeral prayers of the Shuhada of Uhud. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship others along with Allah after my death, but I am afraid that you will fight one another for worldly things. The first part is extremely relevant to the topic. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship others along with Allah after my death, right? Which means that basically shirk wasn't going to become a major issue after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu among Muslims. I think this hadith is clear. So if something is extremely widespread in the ummah, right, then this hadith is a case for that particular thing not being shirk, because because shirk cannot be widespread in the ummah, right? Anything that is widespread in the ummah for this reason can't be shirk, because it would go against this hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So basically the way to show that Istighasa is uh, basically what I need to show for Istighasa to not be shirk is, is that Istighasa has to be massively widespread among the ummah. Now there are absolutely massive amount of scholars who encourage Istighasa. I will not go into the details of the references in this particular video. I'll link those in the video description, but inshallah I plan to make 4 videos just to show one for each Hanbali, Maliki, Hanafi and Shafi, to show how their scholars did Istighasa, how absolutely massive amount of scholars approved Istighasa. Now just to give you an idea of the authorities here who did Istighasa or approved it: Imam Nawawi, Imam Ibn al-Hajar al-Haythami, Imam Ghazali, Imam Shah Waliullah, Imam Qadi Iyad, Imam Ahmad, Imam Subki, Imam Suyuti, Imam Safarini, Imam Ramli, Imam Ibn Aqil, Imam Ramli. There are 2 Imam Ramlis, one Hanafi, one Shafi, Imam Khalati, Imam al-Jazari, Imam Kastalani, Imam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani Rahmatullah alayhi. The level of scholars: Imam Taftazani, Imam Mullah Ali Qari, Imam Ibn al-Jawzi, Imam Ibn Qudama, Imam Tufi. So there's an absolutely massive amount of scholars who did Istighasa and approved it. The layman Muslims took the religion from the scholars. Salafis don't. Salafis try to do fiqh by themselves, but laymen throughout Islamic history have gone to the scholars for issues of fiqh and belief, and what's right, what's not, wrong, what's halal, what's not, right? So the scholars are doing Istighasa and saying it's halal, then the laymen are also doing Istighasa and saying it's halal. It follows from that. There is no way around this point. Istighasa is massively widespread among the ummah, hence it can't be shirk, because if it was to be shirk, it would contradict the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Istighasa is not shirk. I think the argument is clear cut, and I'll link the references for the scholars saying doing Istighasa in the video description. I want to go into the contentions because these are really important in this regard. There are basically 4 contentions. Most of them are quite stupid and easily refuted, but let's get started on them. So the first contention is that there are some hadiths that mention some tribes of Muslims will become mushriks. For example, this is the hadith. Say Sunan al-Tirmidhi 2219. The hour will not be established until tribes from my nation join the idolaters and they worship idols. Right? Now, what this hadith shows clearly, some tribes will become mushrik. But that doesn't contradict the point I'm making. For my argument to work, it isn't a requirement that no Muslim will ever become a mushrik. What is required that a majority of the Muslims will not become mushriks, which is a point this hadith can't refute. So this was the first contention. The second contention is basically the hadith regarding Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam fearing poverty. It is an interesting contention, but it doesn't work, and to be honest, you'll see why. It's actually really easy to see why it doesn't work. So this is a hadith. This is in Sahih Muslim 2961. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "By Allah, it is not poverty I fear for you. Rather, I fear that you will be given the wealth of the world, just as it was given to those before you. You will compete for it, just as they competed for it, and it will ruin you, just as it ruined them." Right. So the Salafi contention is, here it's mentioned that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not basically afraid that people will become poor, but a lot of the people became poor. So this contradicts my interpretation of the hadith that I am not afraid you will worship others along with Allah. This doesn't mean that a lot of people won't worship others along with Allah. You can see why they are thinking it, but the stupidity of the people who make this contention is actually self-evident as well. I'll give you a very simple reason. Let's take the first hadith first. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship others along with Allah after my death, but I am afraid that you will fight one another for worldly things. Now think about this point. If the Ummah was fall into shirk, would that be a bigger worry for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or would the Ummah competing for worldly things be a bigger worry for him sallallahu alaihi wasallam? There is no doubt here. The Ummah falling into shirk would be an orders of magnitude massive amount of bigger worry than the Ummah competing for worldly things. Right? No one will disagree with this. It would be insane to disagree with this. Now, so the shirk would be by default a bigger worry, right? So from this it follows it is rational to infer that if people are people competing for worldly things is a bigger issue, right? If the lesser sin is a bigger issue, then a lot more people would be competing for worldly things than people who fall into shirk. A massive amount of basically orders of magnitude more people will be competing for worldly things than people who fall into shirk. So the people who fall into shirk would have to be quite small in comparison to the people who the people who fall into shirk would have to be very small in comparison to people who compete for worldly things. The logic I've given so far, there is absolutely no way to argue around this. There literally is no way to argue around this. Keep this in mind. Now, let's analyze the second hadith. By Allah, it is not poverty I fear for you, rather I fear you will be given the wealth of the world just as it was given to those before you, and you will compete for it just as they competed for it, and it will ruin you just as it ruined them. So think about this point. There are two things mentioned here, right? People being poor, people being rich. Intrinsically, is there an issue with someone being poor or someone being rich? No. Right? I mean, being poor is not a sin, being rich is not a sin. So this is different from the first hadith, because although doing shirk and competing for worldly things are both sins, there's an order of magnitude, there's a massive amount of difference among them. Right? Shirk is many times more severe than anything else. Keep this in mind. But intrinsically, being poor or being rich, I mean, it's not a sin to be poor, it's not a sin to be rich, right? So, some Sahaba were rich, some Sahaba were poor, so it's not a sin. is different from this hadith, the first hadith in this regard. Secondly, there is a reason given for why people being rich is a worry, because the people who become rich will compete for worldly things, right? In this case, it's actually it seems almost impossible to infer a number of how many people would become rich and how many people would become poor. I don't think you can infer it from this particular hadith. If someone thinks they can, please comment in the comment sections how you can infer from this second hadith that there will be more people who are rich than people who are poor. So this second hadith can't be taken to argue for which would be greater, which would be less. While in the first hadith, the simple fact that shirk is many times worse than basically competing for worldly things, that fact can be used to argue that the number of people who would be falling into shirk would be very small, right? I don't think this contention, this hadith can work because of this simple point. In the second hadith, we cannot argue for amount of people who are poor or who are rich. If some Salafi thinks they can, please try in the comment section. In the first hadith, there is a very simple reason why the people who are falling into shirk would have to be minute, extremely minute. Which is why I think this second contention does not work. The third contention is that this hadith is about Sahaba and the Salaf, not all Muslims. This was the position of Imam Ibn al-Hajar al-Asqalani rahmatullah alayh. But this position is wrong. The correct position is the one held by Imam Nawawi rahmatullah alayh and Imam Khatabi rahmatullah alayh. I'll give a very simple reason why. Look at this hadith. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship others along with Allah after my death, but I am afraid that you will fight one another for worldly things. Right? This hadith is talking about one group of people, whether it's Sahaba or whether it's all Ummah. Now, if it is about the Sahaba, then that means Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was na'uzu billah afraid that Sahaba will fight one another for worldly things. They compete with each other for worldly things. Na'uzu billah. I mean, this is something a Shia would say. This is not something something that a Sunni can hold on to this position. A Sunni can't say that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was afraid that Sahaba will fight with one another, compete with one another for worldly things. No Sunni in their right mind is going to say this, which is why this contention is not going to work. Now, even most Salafis agree with me on this because I've debated them. A lot of them don't try to argue that this is about Sahaba, but some in their desperation will try to argue this is about Sahaba. And I mean, you have to be pretty desperate to be claiming to be love the Sahaba and say this about the Sahaba, but I'll refute that as well. The Salafi contention in that case is that Sahaba fought each other, so this applies to the Sahaba. No. Sahaba were not fighting for worldly things. Some Sahaba did fight each other, right? Hazrat Ali Raziyallahu anhu and Hazrat Muawiyah Raziyallahu anhu had a conflict. But no Sunni in their right mind is going to say that those Sahaba were fighting for worldly things. So this contention doesn't work. And by the way, if some Salafi is stupid enough to make this contention, please make it, because then I can expose you even more as not being Sunnis. So this contention doesn't also work. Doesn't work. The fourth contention is that this hadith can mean 1% or any small part of the Ummah won't fall into shirk. I think the earlier point makes it clear that this contention doesn't work, but I'll give I was going to refute this through another hadith as well, but the earlier point I made regarding the hadith of poverty, right? I think that refutes this contention as well. Inshallah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I think this is one of the most powerful arguments against Salafiyyah being correct. What I really wanted to do in this video was to go in depth on the contentions because they are important here. And to be honest, they can be easily refuted, and if they can be refuted, then Istigatha is not shirk. It can't be shirk. And if that's the case, Salafiyyah are wrong. Inshallah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I will make content on the Salafiyyah, right? But I won't make it anywhere near as much, not much amount as I would prefer to, as my arguments against Christians or atheists or Orientalists, because I do prefer to focus on that. But inshallah, I'll keep doing some videos, maybe once a week or twice a week on Salafiyyah as well. Inshallah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Do like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do need the support, and do comment and share your thoughts. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.